Are you like me? Do you hate that I constantly put my videos into little categories and then try to make sure that I give content to those specific videos? Because I hate that. As much as I don't like defining things, I've found that I keep making categories or series, and it's limiting for me to try to keep having to make things that fit in those boxes. So we're going to make a video that could fit into one of those boxes, but is just outside the realm. Let's talk about it. What's up, everybody? It's Taylor, Sheepish Goat. Good to see you again. Today what we're doing is we're going to try to do a new type of drawing video. And instead of playing into my typical neurosis of trying to fit my videos into certain categories or series, we're going to try to break that mold by turning a video that could probably fit into one into something else to give me a little bit more artistic freedom. So today I'm thinking about my childhood. And in my childhood, thinking about it, there was characters that I liked that all kind of fit into certain themes. And I've got a few of them around me today. So we have Spyro the Dragon, we have Goliath, we even have Darkwing Duck over here. And all of these characters are somewhat similar in aesthetic. Now you might think that, no, they're totally different, but these in particular, they're winged, they generally fly, they have darker colors, purples, blues, grays, blacks. They're kind of anti-heroes, and they're a little bit animalistic. And, oh, you know what, I actually forgot to introduce somebody, so if you just give me... This is my son, Bruce. I found him at the movie theater. He was wandering around saying he lost his parents or something, but yeah, I took him in. So. But he doesn't fit at the table. Get out of here, Bruce. Yes, Batman is one of those too, but as you can tell, the current Batman figure I have is too large to fit on the table height. But all of these characters have similar themes, right? They're kind of anti-heroes, they're dark, they're kind of mysterious, or they're maybe a little more boisterous and edgy, but aesthetically there's some similar themes that I'm noticing. And I want to make a character today that embodies some of these traits. I don't want to make an amalgam. I don't want it to be Goliath with a duck bill, with Batman's gadgets, with Spyro's horn. Like, that's not what I'm after. My goal is to take some of these themes and make a new character. So be inspired by these 4 characters as opposed to taking, let's say, 4 traits and actually physically making something out of it. So almost fits into my 4 themes series, but, or 4 things series, but we're gonna do it a little bit different, to my point earlier. So what do I want to do with this drawing? What am I after? Well, it's funny because in thinking about this, I had the realization that Jeepers Creepers, if you've ever seen that movie, is the perfect amalgamation of all these characters already. So, job done. I have succeeded. You're welcome. It's already been made. No, but it really does kind of aesthetically fit. It's like a demon with wings, it wears clothes, it has like a cool hat like Darkwing Duck, it even has like throwing star like gadget stuff. So if my character doesn't turn out like that, it's a win and I've done my job. But I know to the point of what I want to make. I know that I want wings. I do want wings versus, let's say, a cape. Because I want him to be able to fly. All these guys can kind of go and soar through the sky. I want him to have wings. I don't know specifically if I'll color this in. There's a good chance that I will, at least like some general flat colors. So I think he's going to be darker in aesthetic, either purple, gray, blue. In that realm is my original thought. Maybe accent colors, but I don't have current plans for that. I don't want him to have a tail, which might be surprising because 3 of these characters do have tails. Tools of some kind might be interesting. So some type of gadget or weapon could be cool. But outside of that, like, just kind of general humanoid. I want him to feel very bestial, but I don't want him to feel like a creature who's on 4 legs only. Like, that's his main mobility. So these are the things that I'm kind of after, and I guess we'll see what happens. I'm going to be very open with my mind and how I go about creating this and what actually comes out. So I think it'll be interesting. Yeah, let's get to it and let's talk about it as we go. All right, let's get into the time lapse. So starting this off, I had no idea at all what the hell I was gonna do. I really just let the pencil lead here. I knew I wanted some good form language. I knew I was interested in the pose very much up front. I wanted him to be, like I said, kind of demonic. I originally kind of wanted him to be scary and like in your face, like he was lurking and coming for you, right? I was picturing him kind of posed like between walls, like climbing is how I originally structured this piece when I started. And that shifted as we went along, but that's definitely the original inspiration here. Now I go into trying to find some of the features I knew I wanted, right? Like I wanted cape, I wanted a hat, I knew I wanted some horns. What I get away from here momentarily is I realize that at the current point in time of this image, he looks too Batman-like with how the wing is sweeping out. It's very evocative of some early Batman comic book panels. And while I like the inspiration, of course, I didn't want it to feel too distinctly that, right? So I do rework the wing design so that it feels a little bit more unique. We're just isolating the face as far as this component here, and working out that angle like I typically do. I like to throw it in green and then overlay the angle in which I'm working with so that we can actually get the correct structure of the face or whatever is being drawn below it, and then I refine that again. But yeah, going in here, working out the musculature, I really liked how the body forms came together in this piece, and you know, certain things that just came about accidentally. But to some extent, I realized that I wanted to keep the body pretty exposed after a while because I just liked how it was going. Here's where I started to realize a new wing design I could do. I originally considered doing 4 wings because I thought the top 2 would serve the place of kind of the, like you see on old trench coats or dusters, they have like that upper cape that sits here. And I thought those could fold down and lay over his shoulders, and that would serve the same purpose as actually adding that. I get rid of it and do something else with the wings, but that was the original thought behind this. At this point too, I've given up on him crawling. He's still currently hanging, but he's no longer coming at you. I'm just working more specifically on a pose. And in general with my art right now, that's very important to me. Getting a good pose and trying to get a dynamic shot is really what I'm trying to push with my art so that it feels much more interesting to look at. I have a long way to go, but I am actively focusing on getting a good pose, having good body language in all of my shots. You can see here too that his leg is crossing his body, and that's how he was on the wall. I originally thought that would make it more dynamic to try to change angles, but I do get rid of that and he goes into a standing type pose. You can also see here he also has, excuse me for hitting the camera, he also now has 4 arms. I incorporated back arms instead of kind of traditional up wings, basically. They're arms with webbing between them, so like the nails kind of create the bone of the wing. And I actually was pretty happy with how I came about doing the musculature. I actually added secondary pecs basically and almost secondary traps below that. It might be hard to fully tell, but I did try to go into detail on how the musculature would be laid out in his back. Is it 100% accurate? No, but I thought it would be fun to add a few more muscles to figure out how his body might be able to use those wings. Here we're going in, we're refining some more, working out some better angles and details of the hat. Body is mostly constructed, his general form language, and I liked the pose, I liked the strength, I like how dynamic it was. I knew I wanted more clothes than just the hat, and I was struggling to figure out what that was. I tried this kind of metal chain design. I don't know if it's Egyptian or Aztec or where it originates, but I've definitely seen this type of look before, and I thought it was too Asian or culture-y, or I don't know how to describe that in a good way. Maybe too specific to a specific culture or too linked to a specific culture. I thought I wanted to make him a little bit more brooding. Like the hat felt out of place with the rest of the design, and I knew the hat for me was a must. So I reworked it, and I ended up getting rid of that necklace piece and the skirt and kind of go into a different design. But that's why I knew to get rid of that, because I knew the hat was the leading part of the clothes aesthetic. If you saw as well, the wings were then also reworked. They're now kind of like fins on his arm that shoot out. So when he's soaring, it might help with soaring, but they're not the primary wings. Those are on his back. Those wings too, just to talk about those, because I'm kind of happy with how they came out. I assumed that in a resting state, when they're not sprawled out, they cross his body and they kind of fan and trail behind him on the ground, kind of like a long skirt would look. And I thought in my head that sounded pretty damn cool. So you don't get to see it here, but that's the idea of how they would be when they're not in use, essentially. We're now on to basically the final line art. I used a different brush here. I used something that was much more pen or ink-like. It has a lot of texture to it. I thought it would work really well with kind of the brooding dark nature of this character. You can see his upper area has kind of been reworked in kind of like a slight cloak that goes into like a harness across his chest with a collar. I thought that tied really nicely into the hat. And then I kind of went for a skirt still, but I went more jagged with a more vertical peaks or drapery that also paralleled the hat point, the shoulder points, and I thought it all tied in a bit nicer. I still kept kind of the bracelets on his one arm, and I go and actually give him a toe ring at some point, because at this point still I didn't know what I was doing with the foot. But yeah, I thought all the pieces kind of unified better. I also decided that the secondary horn, I knew I wanted them to be different, but instead of just having a different style of horn, I interpret it in my head now as it's being broken on one side. And having a lot of asymmetry is paramount, at least for me, in making a character feel more interesting. If they're too symmetrical, it kind of ruins the interest, right? You're not jumping around to see all the interesting parts, it's just presented immediately that way. I've also now decided on the type of weapons he's having. Can't remember what they're called. I looked it up earlier, but they're like a Japanese weapon, I believe. Often they have a chain between them. I do end up getting rid of the chain because I thought it would just kind of get in the way and not serve the point. And I've also decided on a foot, kind of an animalistic foot instead of any kind of boot or anything. I just thought it might work better. But yeah, working out some little harnesses on the side so those can be stowed away so he feels more like a real character. There's more intention behind why I'm doing things. And yeah, the hands in particular and how they came out, I'm pretty happy with that. It was kind of accidental. I was just playing around with it, but I kind of got them away from traditional looking hands. You can see many of the limbs have different counts of fingers even, but they're fat, they're thick. So, but yeah, that's the character. So let's take a final look at him. All right, guys. So to be completely honest, I am elated with how this guy came out, and Quoth is too. He's sitting here with us, although he just ducked right under the camera, so you might not see him. But I'm really excited with how he came out. I did not expect he would come out this well. I feel like by the end, all of my ideas really fused together in a way that I'm pretty pleased with. For clarity, the piece took me right about 9 hours from start to finish, and I think I'm pretty damn happy with that pace. I felt as though my pacing and where I wanted to go came very quickly with this one, and I was able to get there without really too much difficulty at all. A couple small things to just point out, because little details I didn't touch on in the main video, but I added some scaling to his arms and his legs a little bit, just hints at it to provide a little extra detail. I wanted him to feel maybe a little dragon-like, thanks Spyro. I do think this guy has a Jeepers Creepers vibe, but I think he's definitely different enough that he doesn't fit that realm. With the hat and everything, he kind of has like a witch hunter sort of vibe, and I'm digging that pretty much. But yeah, as far as the color palette too, I knew I wanted it to be darker, like I said, but I knew as soon as I changed the wing design early on that they should be orange. I was kind of concerned on how those would be balanced, if they would be too vibrant, but once I knew I wanted to go a little bit more muted on the colors, and balancing it with the dark orange of the bones, like the horns and the fingernails, I thought it really came together in a nice way. So I'm really happy with this one, and I would love to know if you guys have a good idea for a name of this guy. I have no idea what to call him, but I think he's pretty cool, and he deserves a name. So if you have one, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear it. But otherwise, feel free to just like the video if you don't mind, and yeah, I don't know what else to say, but I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to stick around. There's more videos coming, and until next time. See you then.